has very straightforward principles of restitution. You can read about them, for example, in Numbers chapter 5, verses 6 through 8. It tells about it. It was to be repaid, and so there has to be restitution. How is Paul going to deal with this? Onesimus has nothing. Like the prodigal son, he wasted all his substance on riotous living, and then he didn't get a job. He just served the Apostle Paul, which is understandable because of his newfound faith and the longings of his heart to be around that godly man. He probably comes back with empty pockets. So how's he going to deal with restitution? Verses 17 and 18. If then you regard me a partner, a koinonon, a fellow partaker of spiritual life, if you regard me a partner, accept him as you would me. Oh my. He says, just treat him the way you treat me. I want Onesimus to have my righteousness in your eyes. Welcome him as you would welcome me. Forgive him as you would forgive me. Hold an obligation against him as you would hold an obligation against me. Just take him back just the way you'd take me. And then in verse 18, Paul adds, but if he has wronged you in any way or owes you anything, charge that to my account. Restitution is always an essential component of forgiveness. It would have been right for Philemon to say, you'll pay me back what it cost me to replace you. I'll take it out of your wages. You will work overtime and you will restore back to me what you stole from me when you left. That would be justice. That would not be wrong. But neither is it wrong to be gracious. Neither is it wrong to say, I know you were an ungodly, sinful man, and I understand that behavior suited that kind of nature. Now that you're a transformed person, I no longer hold you responsible for that which you did in your unredeemed status. I graciously forgive you. That would have been a wonderful thing to do, and certainly would have been a Christian high ground approach to the issue. But just to take any pressure at all off Philemon, to be forced into a gracious act of total forgiveness, Paul says, whatever he owes you, I'll pay. Because he has no money. Obviously, he had nothing with which to pay. So Paul says, I'll pay it. You say, did Paul have any money? He must have had a little. He was renting a house he was staying in. And from time to time, he had worked and accumulated money so he could support the people around him. Paul says, just put it on my bill. And then over in verse 22, he says, I'm coming to lodge with you. The assumption would be when I get there, I'll settle his account. There needs to be restitution. Sometimes the restitution is to pay back if a person is able to do that. But sometimes the best kind of restitution is just sheer forgiveness and just the grace of God. In this case, there is a marvelous component added, because I want you to follow the thought here. Paul is playing a very, very familiar part in the life of Philemon and Onesimus. It is a part he knew well. It is the same part that Jesus Christ plays in the relationship between the sinner and God. Philemon is like God. He has been violated. He has been defrauded. Onesimus is like the sinner who ran from God, who defrauded God, who wasted his life. And if the sinner is to be reconciled to God, somebody must pay the price, right? It was Christ. Paul knows that substitutionary death of Jesus Christ very well. He has preached it for years. What Paul is saying is magnificent here. Paul is saying, I want to be like Christ. I want to take on the debt and the sin of Onesimus so that he can be reconciled to you. Does this give you an insight into Paul? You remember when he said on several occasions, be ye followers of me as I am of Christ. Christ. Here you see him as the substitution for reconciliation, much like Christ. Never are we more like God than when we forgive. Never are we more like Christ than when we carry the debt so that forgiveness can take place. Paul is acting like Christ. He says, I'll take the consequence of his sin. You just take him back. A beautiful, beautiful perspective in this issue of restitution. It doesn't tell us what Philemon did, but I am quite confident that he forgave and that he charged nothing to the Apostle Paul. How do we forgive? Reception. Open our arms, take the person back personally into love. Second, restoration. Take them back into useful service. Third, make sure that they have totally and completely had the debt settled. If they can pay, and it is just and their desire, receive the payment. If they cannot, offer forgiveness. And maybe you at the same time can be the substitute for that reconciliation, even to yourself. Such is the character of forgiveness. Such is the forgiveness God asks us to give each other.
You're listening to Grace to You as John Macarthur continues his look at what it means to forgive. The title of the study, Forgiveness, How to Restore Broken Relationships. Along with teaching here on radio, John Macarthur is also president of the Master's College and Seminary. John, you talked at length today in the study about forgiveness between two people. So instead of asking another question along those lines, I have a question about a different aspect of forgiveness. It comes right from our Q&A line here at Grace to You. Let's play that question, and then if you would respond.
Yes, this is Scott from Cincinnati, Ohio. My question is, as a believer and saved through Jesus Christ, why is it we are taught if he died on the cross for our sins and our sins are covered, then why do we have to ask for forgiveness for sins that we commit during our lifetime? Thank you.
Yeah, I understand your question, Scott, and let's look at it two ways, the way the Bible looks at it. First of all,